thank you very much for coming and joining us today. This is a wonderful opportunity for me to get to know some of the people who are covering important events within various communities here, not just in the GTA, but many of you are with outlets or with organizations that have a presence in several markets throughout Canada. So this is a great chance for us to have a conversation. I can provide you with a few remarks on what we've been focusing on as we come to the close of 2018, and we can talk about what's to come in 2019 leading up to the next election. Alors, merci beaucoup pour votre présence aujourd'hui. C'est un grand plaisir d'être avec vous et on peut parler de beaucoup des enjeux et de le bilan de le gouvernement de 2018. With me today, I just want to highlight we have some wonderful people in the room who are carrying the banner for the Conservative Party in the next election. So we have Hani Tafilia, Mississauga Erin Mills, thank you very much. Sarah Fisher from Don Valley North, Iftar Chowdhury, Scarborough Centre, David Kong, Scarborough North, Sean Hu, Scarborough Agincourt, Ramona Singh. Oh, and Sean, you were just nominated yesterday. Hey, fantastic, congratulations. Ramona Singh from Brampton East, Arpan Khanna from Brampton North, there you are, and Gada Malik from Mississauga Streetsville. So thank you very much for joining with me. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I had that. I did that, Ishar Chowdhury. I did say that, Scarborough Centre, so thank you. Thank you very much. So this past year, we can summarize the Trudeau Liberals as having a year of failure. This was the year that they were supposed to get Canada back to balanced budgets. They promised in the last election campaign that they would run short, temporary deficits and return back to balanced budgets by their last year in office. We now know that that won't happen. The budget projection for this coming year is almost $20 billion. That's $20 billion that this government is borrowing from future generations of Canadians to spend on their political motivations today. That's not fair for future Canadian taxpayers. It's not fair to my 5 kids to grow up knowing that they will inherit the debt that Justin Trudeau has racked up for them. This was the year that Justin Trudeau was supposed to come back with an even better NAFTA. Remember, he said that he would go to Washington and he would come back with an even better trade deal with the United States than we had going into it. And instead, what did we see? We saw the Prime Minister offer concession after concession, giving Donald Trump basically everything he was asking for and got nothing in return. In fact, every single thing that Justin Trudeau claims credit for in the NAFTA negotiations were things that conservative governments had already negotiated and secured for Canadians. All we did was lose, and we got nothing back in return. We also have, we've seen Canada's tax burden shift from, to impose an even greater obligation on families. In fact, 90% of Canadian families are paying more in taxes under this government than ever before. And Justin Trudeau has done nothing to address the very real problem of how life in Canada is becoming more and more expensive. It's becoming harder and harder for families to make it through the end of the month. They point to data points and GDP and things like that to mask the fact that many Canadians are finding it very difficult to make ends meet, and all the while this government is finding new ways to make things more expensive. And we saw that this year when Justin Trudeau introduced his carbon tax. A carbon tax that was supposed to be the signature piece of the Liberal government's approach to the environment. And instead, what this carbon tax has done is offer large industrial emitters huge exemptions while placing all the costs on commuters and families and small businesses. So big, large companies that can afford to hire people to negotiate good deals with the government, they got up to a 90% exemption. But small business owners who employ people in their community, they will pay the full burden of the carbon tax, as well as individuals who have to drive to work, drop their kids off at activities, or who have to heat their home. And living in Canada, as we're entering in the winter season, we know heating your home in this country is not a luxury. It's an essential. And yet we have a government that's making household expenditures even more expensive. So that's the year of failure that we are holding the government to account. As we move into 2019, the Conservative Party will be outlining our vision for Canada, how to make life more affordable for Canadians, get the government's fiscal record back under control so we're not borrowing money from future generations of Canadians, so we're not paying more money in interest payments than we are on services like healthcare and other important items. I want to close before I take questions. I just want to say what an invaluable service you all do for your communities. And one of the reasons why we wanted to have this event was to acknowledge the role that ethnic media plays in Canada today. It is essential that we have a vibrant news reporting industry in Canada, and for the millions of Canadians who speak a language other than English or French, hundreds of thousands of Canadians who speak a language other than French or English, it's very important that organizations like yours are there to communicate so that when we as politicians make decisions or when we want to explain why it is we're doing something or not doing something else, we have an ability to communicate with an ever-growing aspect of Canadian society. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the service that you do for your community. I know there's a lot of conversations about how government policy can have an effect on the media, and I do note that the recent announcement that the government made for news reporting and media have left a lot of ethnic language communities out in the cold. It won't actually address any of the challenges they're facing. I've heard stats about how much the federal government spends on advertisements that go to the big American companies like Google and Facebook, and yet we have a growing number of publications that service Canadians, and the ads aren't being placed in those publications that are actually going to more and more households in the country. So those are some examples of where the Conservative Party understands that this current Liberal government is not understanding the reality that's going on, not just in the news industry in general, but particularly as to how it affects ethnic language newspapers as well. So I'll close on that note. I want to thank you very much. You see before you a very diverse group of candidates. The Conservative Party is a very diverse party. We have representation from every walk of life, every background. The Conservative Party is proud to be the party that elected the first Chinese MP, the first Korean parliamentarian, the first turban Sikh in cabinet, first Muslim MP, first Filipino senator. We are the party of so many firsts because in the Conservative Party, we all come together from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different faiths, different languages to celebrate all the things that make Canada great. And that's our freedom. So sure, and I do appreciate you mentioning the poll that is quite favorable, but I look at good polls and bad polls the same way. I'm always skeptical of both, and I base more of what I'm feeling about where we're at based on how hard our caucus is working, our ability to attract fantastic candidates who are willing to sacrifice their careers or their personal lives because they believe that not only we're on the right side of things, but that we have an opportunity to win the next election and actually implement that agenda. So all things are going very well. We see the Liberals on the run on every issue. You know, here they were 2 weeks ago defending Stats Canada. Stats Canada, a government agency, getting financial data from every, I think it was 1 million Canadians. They were just accessing their bank records, and Canadians were outraged, and we held them to account. We forced them to back down. We saw a brutal killer, Tory Stafford's brutal killer, Terry Lee McClintock, released to a healing lodge. And initially, the government defended that, and because of the opposition raising our voices, they backed down. When it comes to, so I believe things are going very, very well, and all signs indicate that not only are we doing very well right now, but we're going to win the next election. It's very clear things are coming along. We've got the right team in place. We've got the right policies, and more Canadians are seeing through Justin Trudeau. When it comes to the ethnic community, you're absolutely right. And this was something that we've learned as a party. You know, sometimes it's the relationship is just as important as the policy. When I ask people who have come to Canada over the years, you know, what their biggest concerns are, as they run through issues, it's always the Conservative Party that's on their side. Many people have come to this country are entrepreneurs, and they've opened up a business to support their families and to create jobs. The Liberal attack on small businesses was unprecedented, and here were so many Canadians saying, I thought the government was supposed to be on my side, and here the Liberals are calling them tax cheats. Well, it's the Conservative Party that celebrates entrepreneurs and wants to have a government that helps businesses do well and thrive. So that's what we're focused on. We're focused on making our communities safer. I've announced a plan to get illegal guns off the street, to have tougher penalties for gang members, things like that. Economics. Many people, people who come here make sacrifices for themselves so that their children have an even better future. So when we talk about not borrowing money as a government, that really resonates with new Canadians, especially. When we talk about the border issue, so many people I've spoken to who have come to Canada legally have said, hey, wait a minute, it took me 3, 4, 5 years to come to Canada. I'm trying to bring my sister over or my brother. How is it fair that somebody can just show up and jump the line? And now we see wait times for family reunification, for other types of immigrants. Those wait times are going up because this government can't solve the problem with illegal border crossings at the border. So on the issues, it's the Conservative Party that is representing we're on the right side for so many ethnic communities. As it pertains to the media itself, I do think that you're right, that it's not just about the relationship on that side. We do have to look at what the challenges are that are facing the ethnic media particularly. And so the two things I would flag to you, this isn't a campaign announcement. We'll have more to say as we go forward. But I am bothered by the fact that this government, in this era where print media and even some local media, local broadcast media are struggling, not to mention ethnic media, we have a government that's spending millions and millions of dollars on Google and Facebook. Those are American telecom giants that certainly don't need the help. And making sure that ethnic media gets a fair share of that, I think, is essential. Well, on the situation with Raj Grewal, obviously there are a lot of questions being raised about what's gone on. There are some serious allegations that have been levied against him. We asked these questions when he was on the trip to India and he brought somebody that he worked for. We thought that in and of itself, that was an appearance of a conflict of interest. The government refused to answer on that. Refused to answer why you have a sitting member of parliament who's on the payroll of another company and what the relationship was there. So now we understand that our authorities looking into these things, and we've asked Justin Trudeau questions, and he hasn't answered them in the House of Commons, what he knew and when he knew it. And, so we'll find out. Obviously, this will continue. We're going to keep asking the tough questions, even if he doesn't like to answer it. On our own candidates, absolutely, we have a variety of methods where we try to get to know the person who wants to run for us. We're a grassroots party, and we believe that members of our party have the right to choose their own candidate. That being said, the party does try to make sure that people are who they say they are, that they are people of good reputation. So we have a number of things to go through. At the end of the day, no system is perfect, but we do, and we offer them support too. We offer them, not just from the party helping to win elections, but we try to help make sure that everyone's, on the same page and working together constructively. Generally these things tend to come out if you've got people who are well known in the community. People will support them, and if they're well known with a good reputation, it's because they have a track record of being upstanding.
So we've got another question over here. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll come back to you if I can.
I'll get that to you.
Sorry.
Right over there, please.
Well, we have to secure our borders. That is something, no matter how long your family has been in Canada, whether like mine, it's been for several generations, or someone more recently, coming in Canada a little bit more recently, we have to have a system that places fairness at the very forefront of the policy. So when you have people just skipping the line, we have to stop that so that we can have more lawful immigration based on Canada's needs, based on compassion, and things like that. So that would be a key priority, would be to solve the problem at the borders. Then I think what we need to do is we need to have a system that recognizes that Canada has a lot of different needs in a lot of different parts of the country. So you have some areas with very high unemployment, some areas with a shortage of workers. So we need a flexible policy to accommodate for that. And we need to make sure that our immigration targets are linked to our economic and our demographic needs. We need immigration to grow our economy. We need immigration to grow our population. Once we determine what those targets are, then we should have a depoliticized process and to establish that number and to welcome that many people into our country. So this is the Global Compact on Migration? I see, okay. So I announced just recently that the Conservative Party opposes Canada signing on to this compact. We believe that these types of international agreements do have an impact on Canadian law, on Canadian process. There are many examples where international conventions or accords or treaties are cited in our domestic court cases where judges will point to that as a reason for a decision. We believe that Canadians should be able to make these decisions ourselves. There's language in the compact that we find concerning. There's a whole chapter about sensitizing the media and encouraging certain types of reporting while discouraging other types of reporting. We believe that, to invite the government to play that kind of a role, you're all here as independent members of the press, of the media. It's not up to the government to try to encourage or entice or reward or punish. That's something that your viewers, your readers, your listeners should make their own decisions on. So for that reason, we do not support Canada signing on to it, and I have announced that as Prime Minister I would withdraw Canada from that compact. Yes, and this is something I'm very proud of. The previous Conservative government had a very strong voice when the Commonwealth meetings were supposed to be held. Canada, under the Conservative government, took a very clear line on that. We have always, as a party, spoken out against human rights abuses without worrying about ruffling feathers in the other countries. Where we see a particular group of people, an aspect of a country being persecuted or having their rights violated, yes, a Conservative government under my leadership will always speak out loudly on that and support those Tamils who are trying to find justice and seek restitution for what happened. Well, I just want to point out that I think Premier Ford obviously recognized that a cap and trade was costing Ontario consumers and taxpayers a great deal without the environmental benefit. Kathleen Wynne's disastrous policies here in Ontario have left Ontario taxpayers on the hook for everything from green energy scandals to cancellation fees for new power plants. So it's frustrating to me to watch a federal Liberal government with a carbon tax plan that doesn't reduce emissions but just raises the costs on commuters pronounce judgment on a provincial plan that has a path to actually reducing emissions, and that has already seen huge benefits to consumers and to the people of Ontario. So in that respect, Conservative government would work very closely with the Ontario government as they implement their meaningful plan to reduce emissions. And I don't think Justin Trudeau is in any position to throw stones. His plan, the Trudeau Liberals' plan, won't reduce emissions. They won't meet their targets. And so for them to pick a battle with the Ontario government makes no sense to me. So as Prime Minister, we would give provinces the flexibility if they can meet targets without a cap and trade or without a carbon tax. There's no need for the federal government to force them into something. And that's what we see with Justin Trudeau. He's picking a fight with the provinces when it's his own plan that has been proven to be so wildly ineffective. Well, we've certainly called on the Liberal government to do more in that. We announced a plan just a few months ago about how Canada can give more material aid to Ukraine, so it's not just words, but it's actually equipment that would help them defend themselves. That would be a tangible benefit to the government of Ukraine and to the people of Ukraine in fighting back against unwarranted Russian aggression. To date, we don't see that. We see some nice words from Justin Trudeau, but the real action that would actually help Ukraine is missing in action. So that's something that we've already laid out as a marker that could be done that would not just send a signal to Russia that Canada is standing with Ukraine and that the world is coming together to protect Ukraine's integrity and the sovereignty of its borders, but also actually give them the equipment to help them do that.
Would you ever see Canadian boots on the ground?
I wouldn't want to speculate as to that point. Obviously we all hope that things can de-escalate, but I do believe that the hard assets, the hard equipment, the meaningful military equipment that Canada does have at its disposal could be directed to Ukraine to provide it tangible help. Well, I very much thank you for the question. And I've got to know some people in the Armenian community very, very well, and I really enjoy attending the events with them. A fantastic part of Canada's society. And I've really learned a lot about the history of the Armenian people, both here in Canada as they've established communities and the diaspora has grown, but also, of course, the tragic history that has happened in Armenia itself. And so, I'm proud to be part of a government that has a party that recognized that and the tragedies that have been imposed upon the Armenian people. Again, when it comes to specific campaign announcements, I'll have to ask you to be a little bit patient but I have had the issue of the embassy brought up with me, and I do think it's something that the government of Canada should be moving towards addressing, because it is a gap, as you rightly point out, being the only G7 country. So I invite you to stay tuned on that one.
Final question to this gentleman in the back.
So just before we get to the mixing and mingling, I just wanted to wish you all, as we head into the holiday season. I know everyone gets some downtime, no matter what your cultural practices are or your religious beliefs. I know this is a time that everybody spends some time with friends and family. So on behalf of the Conservative Party of Canada, my colleagues in the House of Commons, my fellow candidates up here on stage, I want to wish everybody the very best for the Christmas season. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Hope you all have a healthy and prosperous 2019. Thanks very much for joining me.